Hello everyone, welcome to another one of my little how-to videos. Today I am making a bunch of very simple thank you cards. They are so simple that I managed to get 10 of them done all at once, and although they might look a little bit fiddly, it took me no time at all to get them together. I'm using the Superstar stamp set today. I was lucky enough to get my hands on it, and here are the other things that I'm using. The stitched scalloped rectangles, my little Oliver's ABC stitch dies, and at first I was going to use this grassy border, but I ended up changing my mind, as you'll see in just a minute. I also cut up a bunch of white cardstock. Here I am just playing with my layout a little bit. I wanted to make sure that there was enough room for the name and my little mouse and enough room for grass and a decent sky, because I wanted that to be the feature of these little cards. This was the moment that I remembered that I had my little grassy stencil, so I ended up swapping that instead of using the die. Here I am just starting to stamp my images out. I won't show you all of them because I did 10 of each, so I used the telescope and that adorable little mouse. It was then time to get colouring. Using two of just my normal cheap grey alcohol markers, I coloured in the telescopes. These are surprisingly good at blending, despite them not being marked as markers that are able to be blended. They just do the trick. After that, I coloured in my mice with some of the Copic markers from my skin tone collection. Once my little mice were done, it was time to move on to the background. I lined up my Grassy Stencil, making sure it was nice and even because I didn't want my little mouse on a hill, and then I grabbed my Lawn Fawn Distress Oxide ink and started blending. I only used one colour for this because I wanted it to be quick and easy. I wasn't here to fuss around and drag this out. I used it a bit heavier in some areas to make it look a little bit darker, but that was about all I did for this. Once this was done, I just put a little bit of this ink on my mat, wet it down with some water, and flicked it over the grass to give it just a tiny bit of texture. After that, I moved my stencil down so that I could cover up my grassy blades nice and even. This is one of the amazing things about these stencils, so that I could focus on making my sky. The colours for my night sky in this one are going to be Seedless Preserves, Picked Raspberry, and Chipped Sapphire. Chipped Sapphire for me is always a little bit temperamental to use, so I use it just on the very edges to darken up the sky. I used Picked Raspberry down the bottom to make it look like the sun was setting. After that, I moved in with the Chipped Sapphire coming down from the top, so that then I can put the Seedless Preserves through the middle. As you can see, this Chipped Sapphire just doesn't like to be nice and bold like my other colours, so I do have to work on this one quite a bit to get a nice deep coverage. As with all ink blending, going back and forth between the colours gives it a nice smooth transition. And there we have it, my night sky was finished. I think it turned out really, really cute, but it needed some sparkles. Everything of mine has to be sparkly and glittery. Putting it back on my little splattered piece of paper, I got out some water and started flicking it all over the place. After that, I used some of these beautiful watercolor pigments. I will do some more videos with these a little bit later, but I had just gotten them in the mail and I thought they would be perfect to use for this quick project. Now that that was done, I thought I would try my luck at some white embossing. I'm not too bad at embossing, I am still definitely learning, but I thought these stars would look beautiful in the night sky. Using the biggest stars and some of the little ones up in the other corner, I used my Lawn Fawn white embossing powder, and I think I do show what embossing ink I do use for this. I've had it for a long time and I don't really remember where I got it from. I have a feeling it may have been Blitzy, but I don't talk about that because I'm still a little bit heartbroken that they don't exist anymore. Because I was making so many of these, I didn't go running back to my embossing heat tool between all of them. I was able to stamp them, pop the embossing powder on and put them to the side, and so long as I was very careful not to bump them, they all weighted nicely so that I could take all of them over at once. This definitely saved a lot of time because I was making so many of them. I went with the sentiment, "I thank my lucky stars for you." I just think this one is really, really sweet. Once my mountain of embossing was done, I then started working on personalising the front of all of these little notes. My Oliver's Stitched ABC dies are my favourite. I think I've used them on almost all the cards and all the projects that I've done since I got them. They just make the cutest addition to the front of the cards, and spelling out everybody's name on these made them a little bit more special. I used a dark purple cardstock for everybody's name, and I decided I wanted to make them look a little prettier and have them almost match the night sky that I had created, so I got out my picked raspberry ink and just put it on the lower half of these letters. It's a bit of a subtle detail, but it looks really pretty. Moving on to the front of the card, I used these glue dots. They're the ones that aren't permanent until they've had a little while to set, so I could move these around and play with them for a little while. I glued down my sentiment first, and then I played around with the placement of the mouse and the telescope, slipping them behind the sentiment because I could lift it up. I think the most fiddly thing out of this whole project was putting all the tiny little bits of foam tape on the back of the names. I personally like to have them raised just for a bit of added dimension, but this could have easily been done by just gluing them on and saving you heaps of time. But even then, it really didn't take that long. Once I had stuck all the letters down, I put it back into my stamp press and used the grid on the top just to make sure my names were nice and straight. For a little bit more added sparkle, I used my Wink of Stella pen to go over the letters. And then I used my Jelly Roll white pen, I think it was the 0.8, to give the letters just a little bit more detail. And that was the front of the card ready. I decided to turn these into little thank you notes, so I cut out some more white cardstock in the same shape as the rectangle scallops, and I stuck them directly onto the back. If I wanted to, I could have put that whole front onto the front of a card base and turned it into just a regular card. And that was it. They were ready to use. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel. I have some very exciting things coming up in the next few weeks. Bye!